let's go to Brian, who's listening in Green Bay, our second Wisconsin call in a row. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Patrick. I wanted to get your opinion about the idea of an online mandatum from the church regarding sort of social media presence by people presenting themselves to be, authoritatively Catholic. I think the idea was presented by, I think Bishop Barron is credited with kind of floating the idea, and I've heard that it comes from sort of this divisive and vitriol presence on particularly like Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter. I know that you're active on there, so I wanted to get your opinion first of, I guess, what is the environment like on Twitter, and second, get your opinion of what the implications of a mandatum like this would be.
Sure, I'll give you my thoughts. I'm not in favor of that proposal. I don't think it would be workable or useful. Now, I can respect people's view that they want to do something to try to quell what does happen often on social media. It's not just on Twitter. You can see it a lot on Facebook as well. And that is vitriol, character assassination, lots of infighting and things like that. So for me personally, I just try to avoid it. I try not to enter into those polemics if I can avoid it. Now, there are other polemics I will enter into, but I try not to, as best I can anyway, I try not to get into that fray. So while I agree that it is problematic and that we should seek to not do those things, I don't see this as a viable way of dealing with that for the following reasons. Number one, these are, for the most part, lay people who are not teaching the faith. They're offering their opinions. And we have a right, Canon 212 says that lay people, among all the people in the church, those who are ordained, etc., but lay people especially, we have a right to voice our concerns about the church. And it says, according to our competence, etc., but fundamentally, lay people have a right to say, hey, this is a problem, or I don't like this, or why is this happening? And that's enshrined in the church's law. And something like this, I think, would be counterproductive because it would infringe upon that right. Secondly, what do you do when you have, first of all, we know from bitter experience that there are wildly distinct, wildly different perspectives on just about any issue among the bishops. And I don't mean just the bishops in the United States, but around the world. So if one bishop grants a mandatum to a given person, a lay person who wants to express his opinions about the church on Twitter, and he does so because he agrees with that person's opinion, what do you do in the next diocese over if that bishop doesn't agree with that? I mean, what does the mandatum actually mean in that case? Or let's reverse the scenario. Let's say that you have a bishop who wants to clamp down on certain persons who are promoting their perspective on Twitter, for example, and he does so by not giving a mandatum, not giving this so-called yellow check mark, which is, the term that's being used kind of an analogy to the blue check mark that some people have on Twitter to show that it's an official account. So what if a bishop withholds that yellow check mark? And so now you've got a sort of glaring absence. Well, you don't have the yellow check mark that says that you have the permission from the bishop to say what you really feel about things like that. Well, I mean, it becomes ideological very quickly. And ideologies clash. And so I see this as, in theory, I mean, it sounds like a nice idea, but in practice, I think it would be a nightmare. Furthermore, I'll give you one final thing. And I say this as somebody who I myself have to have a mandatum because I teach theology. I teach on 2 theology faculties. I teach on the faculty of Holy Apostles College and Seminary on their online program. I also teach on the faculty of St. Patrick's Seminary and University in Menlo Park. And so because I teach on a theology faculty in a Catholic institution, I have to I have to receive a mandatum. I have to do the profession of faith publicly, the profession of my oath of fidelity to the teachings of the church. And that's because I have an official capacity. I'm not trying to exalt myself or anything. I'm just saying that because I teach, I have to do that. And I'm willing to do that. I want to do that because I want to be a loyal son of the church. But you don't have to do that. if you want to express your opinion on Twitter or Facebook. So there is a place and a time when a mandatum is necessary and useful. I just don't think that this is one of those places. I think it would create more problems than it would solve. What do you think, Brian?
That's great. Thank you. And I guess that's really very insightful. I do, I get worried about the environment and what can kind of when those opinions are expressed and then people kind of post and repost and share, how much division that can create within our own church. And so I wonder, what do we do as lay people when we see that? How do we heal that?
Well, I look at it this way. The church has always proposed to us a certain code of conduct, whether it's chastity or honesty or integrity in some other form. The church proposes to us how we should live our lives, and this comes from Jesus Christ. How should we live? So we have the ideal set before us. We have the church's teaching. It's very clear. We know what we should do. Not everybody lives up to that. Some Catholics beat their wives. Some Catholics look at pornography. Some Catholics drink too much. Some Catholics cheat on their taxes. Some Catholics lie. Some Catholics steal from their employers. And we could go on down that long list. So the thing is, recognizing human nature, the solution ultimately is don't do those things. Live up to your calling as a Catholic. Maybe go back and read. I'm not talking to you personally, Brian, but maybe go back and read what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says about detraction, rash judgment, gossip, those things that are so rampant in some circles anyway, in social media, and then don't do that. Go to confession and don't do it anymore. I mean, if there were any push, I think it would be for, if the bishops were to do anything, I think it would be to strongly evangelize people on why they shouldn't do some of the things that they're doing. The danger, the harm, the destruction that comes from attacking people publicly, not to mention privately. I mean, I think the solution is, Brian, let's reform our behavior. And that's where you're really going to find some progress. But to have another committee with another layer of bureaucracy and some more red tape, it's not going to change anything. It'll just exacerbate the problem, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. And I think that is good advice to go to the Catechism, and I think that'll be a refreshing read for me and anyone else, I suppose. So yeah. Thank you.
Maybe I'll do that in a second. I'll read from the Catechism so that everybody knows what we're talking about on this issue. It's such a widespread problem. So please understand, I certainly don't disagree with the spirit of what Bishop Barron is saying. And I think he's right to say, guys, we have a problem here. I just don't see that particular effort as something that would be viable and helpful in the long run. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am on this issue. Brian, I appreciate the phone call. You know what else I'll do is let's turn this into a social media clip, and we'll get this out there, the entirety of this discussion just now, so that those who are wondering about this will have some further food for thought. Let me read to you from the Catechism. Let's start, first of all, in paragraph 2477, which talks about these issues, some terms that you don't often hear anymore, but they're very important. So the Catechism, paragraph 2477 says, "Respect for the reputation of persons forbids every attitude and word likely to cause them unjust injury. He becomes guilty of rash judgment who even tacitly assumes as true, without sufficient foundation, the moral fault of a neighbor. He becomes guilty of detraction who, without objectively valid reasons, discloses another's faults and failings to persons who do not know them. He becomes guilty of calumny, who, by remarks contrary to the truth, harms the reputation of others and gives occasion for false judgments concerning them." Now, I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name any names. There are voices out there on Twitter who publicly say that so-and-so, some Catholic figure, is having an affair, an extramarital affair with another person, and they name these people. And they put this kind of stuff out there on Twitter. Now, not only do I not know if any of that's true, I don't need to know if that's true. That is detraction and calumny. Those are mortal sins. Another couple paragraphs from the Catechism. I mean, I hate to even bring that issue up, but I mean, it's out there and people are saying this kind of stuff. Detraction, paragraph 2479, detraction and calumny destroy the reputation and honor of one's neighbor. Honor is the social witness given to human dignity, and everyone enjoys a natural right to the honor of his name and reputation and to respect. Thus, detraction and calumny offend against the virtues of justice and charity. The last one I'll quote to you is from paragraph 2507, and this is a very short one. It says, respect for the reputation and honor of persons forbids all detraction and calumny in word or attitude. That extends to tweets, that extends to Facebook, that extends to all, any manner of doing this. And boy, do you see it happen all over social media. And then the last one, I'll throw this in for good measure because it quotes St. Augustine, who is a big hero of mine. 2539 is the paragraph. Envy is a capital sin. It refers to the sadness at the sight of another's goods and the immoderate desire to acquire them for oneself, even unjustly, when it wishes grave harm to a neighbor. It is a mortal sin. St. Augustine saw envy as, quote, the diabolical sin. From envy are born hatred, detraction, calumny, joy caused by the misfortune of a neighbor, and the displeasure caused by his prosperity. Bingo, bango. So these are really important issues that many people, there's a term that's used out there, it's called Catholic Twitter, whatever that may mean. Sometimes I'm tempted to think that really doesn't have a meaning because it means so many different things to different people. But in any case, this goes on big time in social media. And I agree with Bishop Barron. It should stop. I hope it will stop. Please God, it stops. I don't think it's going to, but in a perfect world, it would stop. In the meantime, let it begin with me, right? I think that should be our motto. Like the song says, let peace begin with me. Let civility and charity begin with me and you on social media. And I know it's easier said than done. And I recognize how tempting it is to want to snark somebody or to say something that could be construed in that way. Sometimes it's just an attempt to be funny, but often these people are really seriously interested in damaging the reputation of other people, of destroying them, of belittling them so people will stop listening to them or being influenced by them. And those are serious sins, as the Catechism says. Word to the wise, that's all. Thanks for that call, Brian.
For more of The Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.